Good afternoon, guys. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to turn to your homework from last night. I'm going to spend a couple minutes going over all the homework examples. So what you want to do is, as I go along, is check your work and check your answers. So starting with number 1, 2 radical b to the 5th. So we're going to circle that 2. It'll become part of our answer. Remember, when we have an odd exponent, we take out 1, and in the other radical goes the remainder, so b and b to the 4th. Radical b cannot simplify any further. Since b to the 4th is an even exponent, we're able to take the square root of it, which is b squared. All terms without the radical sign go on the outside. All terms with the radical sign go on the inside. For number 2, we have 4 x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd. So remember that when you have two terms inside the radical, we want to make sure we split it into 2 separate radicals. Because x to the 3rd is odd, we take out 1x, and then x squared goes in the. We can't simplify square root of x, so we're going to save that for our answer. The square root of x squared is x. For the y to the 3rd, split it into y and y squared. Square root of y squared is y. Take all your terms that do not have a radical, so 4xy, and then all your terms with the radical go underneath the radical sign. For number 3, we have radical 49a. Just like with the last one, we're going to split it into 2 different radicals. So 49 and a. The square root of 49 is 7. Radical a cannot be simplified. So our final answer there is 7 radical a. Next, number 4. For number 4, we have 36 r squared s. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of r squared is r. And the square root of s cannot be simplified. So our final answer is 6r radical s. Next, number 5. For number 5, we have a 5 on the outside, and then radical 4, x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd. So we're going to save that 5 for later. Break it into our 4 radicals. The square root of 4 is 2. X to the 3rd breaks down into x and x squared underneath the radicals. The square root of x squared is x. For y to the 3rd breaks down into radical y and radical y squared. Square root of y squared is y. Again, we want to go ahead and take anything that doesn't have a radical. So we have 5 times 2 and xy. And then with the radical, we have radical x and radical y. We're going to multiply these together. 5 times 2 is 10, xy, radical xy. I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and catch up on any of those that you need to get the work down for. Okay, continuing with number 6. We're just going to shrink this and continue with number 6. For number 6, The question was 20 x squared y to the fifth, all underneath the radical. So we're going to have to do a little bit more simplifying for this one. Radical 20 breaks it down into radical 5 and radical 4. Radical 5 cannot be simplified any further. The square root of 4 is 2. For x squared, the square root of x squared is x. And for y to the fifth, since it's odd, take out 1y. Radical y cannot be simplified. Square root of y to the fourth is y squared. So we have 2xy squared and then radical 5y for our final answer there. Next, in the upper right corner, I'm going to do number 7, which has a 5 on the outside, 18y to the third, u to the sixth, and z to the eighth, all under the radical. Circle that 5 for later. I'm going to break it down into my different radicals so that I could simplify each of them. (18) simplifies into radical 2 and radical 9. The square root of 9 is 3. For y to the third breaks down into radical y and radical y squared. The square root of y squared is y. U to the sixth, square root of u to the sixth is u to the third. And the square root of z to the eighth is z to the fourth. In the front, we have a 5 times 3, y, u to the third, z to the fourth. And then underneath the radical, we have 2 and y. 5 times 3 is 15, y, u to the third, z to the fourth, and then radical 2y. Lots of simplifying there. Make sure you separate them just like I did in order to break each one down. Okay, next, number 8. For number 8, nice, short, quick one, a to the 16th. Now remember that when you have an even exponent, it's a perfect square. So meaning you're able to take the square root of it. So we're going to divide the exponent by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So our answer there is a to the 8th. And the last one, number 9, radical b to the 19th. Since it's an odd exponent, we're going to split it into radical b and radical b to the 18th. Can't simplify radical b at all. Square root of b to the 18th is b to the 9th. So we end up with b to the 9th radical b. Again, I'll give you a minute just to copy down anything from 6, 7, 8, and 9 that you need. And then we're going to start the notes. So when you're done with that, you can go ahead and turn to the radical note in Notability. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the notes. If you need to review any of this, you could go to the website. It'll be on the front page, so you can always go back through it. So, for the notes for today, our notes are going to be on multiplying and dividing radicals. So first I'm going to give you the notes, and then I'm going to go through a couple of examples so that you can do the questions in the pink iBook. So for multiplying and dividing radicals, the first step is that we're going to multiply or divide, depending on what the sign is, the coefficients. Remember that your coefficient is the number in front of the radical. So here our coefficient is 4. The second step is to multiply or divide the radicands. Again, depending what the sign is. So if we take the example that we just did right above, the radicand here is radical is 6. The last step is going to be to simplify, if possible. Finish getting that information down. Again, if you need to, you can always go back and revisit this either at home or from your iPad. So let's go through some examples. We are going to go through 4 different examples. So the first 2 are going to be multiplication, and then the second 2 are going to be division. So for number 1, 4 radical 6 times negative 3 radical 4. So first what we're going to do is we are going to multiply our coefficients. So 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Next, we multiply our radicands. So 6 times 4 is 24. And the radicands are going to stay under the radical sign. Now we simplify. So simplifying is just exactly what we've been doing the last couple days. So we're going to circle that negative 12, and we're going to break down 24 into factors. So the factors of 24 are radical 6 and radical 4. Radical 6 breaks down into radical 2 and radical 3. Neither of them can be simplified. The square root of 4 is 2. Let's see what we end up with. We have negative 12 times 2 times radical 2 times radical 3. Negative 2 times 12 is negative 24. And radical 2 times radical 3 ends up multiplying back together to radical 6. So our final answer there is negative 24 radical 6. Again, multiply your coefficients first, multiply your radicands, and then simplify if possible. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. For number 2, another multiplication. This time I'm going to write it with the multiplication sign instead of the 2 parentheses. So multiply your coefficients. 3 times 2 is 6, Multiply your radicands. 8 times 2 is 16. And we're going to simplify from there. The square root of 16 is 4. So we end up with 4 times 6, which is 24. Let's go ahead and move on to 2 division examples. The first one, 6 radical 8 divided by radical 2. So for this example, just like when we have x, the coefficient in front of x is 1. So the coefficient here in front of this radical 2 is also going to be 1. So I'm going to write it in there. divide your coefficients. 6 divided by 1 is 6. Divide your radicands. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Simplify. The square root of 4 is 2. And 6 times 2 ends up leaving you with a final answer of 12. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this a little. Okay, then we're going to do number 4. For number 4, I'm going to throw in some variables here. So for number 4, divide your coefficients. 5x squared divided by x leaves us with a coefficient of 5x. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Now we have to simplify that 12. Okay, just making a little more room there. Radical 12 breaks down into radical 4 and radical 3. Radical 3 can't be simplified. Radical 4 can be simplified to 2. So we end up with 5x times 2, which is 10x radical 3. Again, finish copying those down. If you have any questions, you can play back the video to help you. And you're going to complete the work in the pink iBook. It is in e-backpack for you. And anything that you don't finish should be finished for homework. I will see you guys tomorrow.